From victims of injustice to World Cup pariah, United States men's national team received some weighty news on Sunday as FIFA announced that Folarin Balogun's red card suspension for the round of 16 game against Belgium is, in fact, suspended in an unprecedented move. So everyone thought the USA was hard done by the ruling, but benefits is something we've not seen before.
Okay, I want to be factually accurate, right? As I'm working through my thoughts here, and certainly, Rob, I'd like to hear from you, and I'd like to hear from the Ultras. Shout out to the Ultras. We didn't say good morning today. We had to dive in, but thank you very much for your support. This has, in fact, happened. It happened in 1962. Garrincha got a red card. And apparently this tournament, I believe, wherever the 1962 World Cup was taking place, the fans didn't want Garrincha to be suspended. It was in Chile. They didn't want him to be suspended. The Chileans loved Garrincha. And so FIFA was like, all right, I guess Garrincha can play, even though he got a red card. So this is not exactly unprecedented. I will leave it to you as a discerning adult.
Unusual.
I will leave it to you as a discerning adult to decide whether something that happened in 1962 can be called precedent for something happening in 2026. All right, I'll just leave that to you. But it's not completely unprecedented, nor is FIFA doing things to benefit certain preferred parties. Let's just, again, throw a big blanket over FIFA corruption. FIFA's corrupt, y'all. I don't know if you knew this. It's just breaking news. FIFA's corrupt. But I am not a person who can say, oh, this is fine because FIFA's corrupt and FIFA corrupts corruptly and, whatever. Who cares? Normalizing the idea that FIFA's going to do FIFA things and therefore we should just accept this. Number one, that's very cynical. And number two, you cede any ethical ground that you might have to later on say, oh, I don't like what they're doing. Oh, my God, I can't believe FIFA's ruining the game. All right. I'm not even really sympathetic, and I know I'm going to upset some people here. I'm not sympathetic to people who are just willing to toss this out and go, whatever. I'm glad that Balogun's playing because the red card was bullshit initially. My apologies for the language. Right? That's one way to cover for your issue with the ethics of this is to say, well, that red card was bad to begin with. They're just they're correcting an injustice, which is what Mauricio Pochettino said. Is that right? I don't know if you saw his quote on this, Rob, but essentially he was like, if you believe in the integrity of the game, the red card initially was bad, and therefore this is all okay. And I'm just not there. I'm not comfortable with that. Bad calls get made all the time.
Every game?
All the time. In every game. Some are more egregious than others. I certainly don't think that referees should be going to the monitor and looking at freeze frames and slow-mos on a challenge like this and then giving a red card after the fact when no foul was called initially. Obviously, part of the problem is you can't issue a yellow card via VAR review, which probably would have been the correct decision in the end. So I don't love that. I definitely thought in the moment it was a nonsense red card and shouldn't have been given. Mm-hmm. But a red card gets given sometimes that it happens, right? It happens. And if there's no pre-prescribed process for appealing a red card and a suspension in a tournament, we shouldn't be making it up. FIFA shouldn't be making it up. And then, of course, you have the politics factor. You have the Trump influence factor, which just, look, even if FIFA was trying to cover by saying, well, it was an incorrectly given red card and we think you should be able to play. And we have the authority within the bylaws of FIFA, and they do. Article 27 has been thrown out. We are allowed to sort of change our minds whenever we want. Even if they wanted to do that, the second it comes out that the Trump administration made a phone call, everything's out the window ethically. It's all over from there. It's all corrupt from there. And don't try to make apologies otherwise, right? It doesn't mean that I'm not happy Balogun's going to be playing tonight. It doesn't mean that I'm not still going to be fully invested emotionally in my team's success. I know this about myself. Even with my moral quandary, I'm not going to be like, screw it, I hope they lose. I can't do that. But I think we should acknowledge that conflict that is now erupting in a lot of people.
Yeah, the United States men's national team's view from the world changed yesterday. I mean, I think everyone, no one agreed with the red card. It was a nonsense red card against Bosnia in the first place, but it is what it is to a degree. And they went from the victims of an injustice and kind of a sympathetic role to the benefactor of, a politician wading in where it doesn't belong. And even if it wasn't 100% Trump's influence, there's the perception of his influence, which is enough. And then if you kind of like zoom out and you look at the history and games and tournaments that have happened in places with, let's say, peculiar political situations going on during, you can circle things like, oh, preferential treatment here, preferential treatment there. So if the United States, whether
but hold on,
people are going to be like, oh, they got to help from outside.
That's fair. Help. Look, it's fair. Again, precedent. I mentioned Grinch in 1962. That's just because Chileans wanted to see him play. Argentina in 1978. Now, you will hear it said as a point of common knowledge that the World Cup in 1978 went in the direction of Argentina, where it was taking place, because there was a military junta. Right, that this was, but none of that, even that idea, which certainly is not 100% proven, that the World Cup, that Argentina won a World Cup in 1978 because of the military junta, whatever, influenced proceedings. It doesn't come from FIFA did things to manipulate the results on behalf of Argentina. The story in Argentina is that the junta was a scary ass government, and that the referees and the people that were involved in the tournament on the ground, the individuals who were, running the tournament, not from a FIFA level, but from referees and administrators, those people maybe felt the pressure to tilt things in Argentina's direction in a less blatant way than this moment is happening for the United States of America, right? And again, I want to address something that was in the chat. The idea that Trump didn't do anything here. Right, that this isn't actually down to Trump making a phone call as to why FIFA would do this. I think it's 100% fair to say FIFA doesn't need a phone call from Donald Trump to do something shady like this. Infantino in particular doesn't need a phone call from Donald Trump to go, hey, what's in the best interest of our bottom line? Maybe letting Balogun play, because if the Americans make the quarterfinals, that's better for the tournament and better for our money, right? Don't mess with our money. We can make more money. This is better for spreading the gospel of FIFA and allowing us to just squeeze America for as much as it can be squeezed, right? Because if you go big picture, the more success the U.S. men's national team has, the more fans of soccer there are in America, the more opportunity for FIFA to treat them as cash registers, right? That's sort of just a very simple bit of logic as to why FIFA would do this, regardless of political pressure. But as soon as it comes out, and there is very good reporting from very good reporters in multiple places, confirmed that a phone call was made. Once that's out there, it doesn't matter whether FIFA would have done it with or without Trump's influence. Once he is attached to it, the whole thing is corrupt. The whole thing is covered in shit. That's the bottom line about this. And again, the problem for us as fans is now we have to wrestle with that. The problem for the team is if they win, it will always be tainted. Always. It doesn't matter now. There's nothing that could change, barring Mauricio Pochettino doing something I do not for a second believe he will do, which is not play Folarin Balogun. Barring that, there is no way out of this. And it's bad for Balogun too, because of course he wants to play. And of course, if his coach says, hey, you're in my lineup, he's going to go out there and play.
Of course.
But he's also going to be now the symbol of this corruption for the rest of his career.
Yeah, it's wild. The receiving the news, I'm curious how everyone felt when they first received the news. It went from shock to excitement to, wait, how is this possible? Then the more you learn about it, the more you read, the more it could taint this whole thing. Like I said, there was a sympathy factor on the American side after the red card was issued. I saw in the comments talking about there was 3 players with their red card suspensions postponed coming in here. I certainly know about the Ronaldo one, but there is a difference between pre-seasons or pre-tournament stuff and in-tournament stuff. And there's also like the amount of time that it took. It wasn't like the next day they reviewed it and reversed it. So Belgium's been preparing for this for many, many days under the guise that the normal process would win out. It's opaque. I mean, just how it all played out. And I mean, obviously, like, you're not supposed to VAR with the slow motion. That's a whole element to this. But all those things aside, to your point, is once the reporting of Trump made a phone call, all of the nitpicking through the facts gets, thrown out the window.
I think it's a matter of the perception is more important than reality here. Because, again, if you want to dive into the specifics of the laws and the rules and how things are written down, there's a lot of wiggle room. It's kind of gray. Even the bit about not using freeze frame and slow motion when you review a bit of violent conduct, right? That's specifically what we're talking about, violent conduct. Even the idea that you're not supposed to use freeze frame or VAR is not absolute. It's not written down. Do not use it. It is they shouldn't use it. Or there's some wishy-washy words in there that are basically like, we're not saying you can't. We're saying it's probably not the best way to go. So then when a referee does it, it's not technically outside the bounds of how a game should be refereed. It's just, our suggestion is this. This is not, none of this is so clear cut so that you can point to the laws or the rules and things are written down and say, oh, well, this prescribes that or that prescribes this. It's not like that at all. Up to and including the decision by FIFA to change the suspension for Balogun. Even that, again, Article 27, as people will have referenced, says something like FIFA reserves the right to change their minds, right? Like we have all these rules and all these rules and all these rules, and this is how everybody thinks the game goes. And then all of a sudden it says, actually, we can change it anytime we want to. It's basically Calvin ball, right? But as long, and that little bit, right, that extra clause in there should be a warning, and everybody should take it as a warning. And now people will take it as a warning because previously there was this assumption, right? We all operate in this way, right? It's like a social contract, right? You go out in public. You don't walk up to somebody and pull their pants down. We just don't do that. First of all, it's probably illegal, but even if it wasn't illegal, you wouldn't do it, right? This is the kind of thing that happens in this, where there's all these things that go on for years and years and years. And everybody gets very used to the way things work. And then one day, because of the president called or just because they want the U.S. to have an advantage or for whatever reason, FIFA says, well, actually, we have the right to change this. And everybody's screaming bloody murder, not because it's technically illegal for them to do it, but because they've never really done it before, right? That's the precedent issue. By the way, if you want Calvin ball distilled down, so not only you said it took days for them to announce this. I mean, I could not believe it when my phone told me this was happening. Yeah. In fact, I think there's a story at the Athletic or somewhere where the camp itself, the USMNT national camp, was like, I thought this was AI. I had no idea what is happening right now, right? Even they were flabbergasted by this. And I don't know if the team itself was told about the appeal that U.S. Soccer was apparently part of, which might have involved figures from the Trump administration, which, again, is all this messy nonsense. It took a long time for them to make the decision to suspend the ban. Then, in the last 24 hours, as this thing erupted, we got word that there was an appeal process created for Belgium to actually appeal this, right? Appeal the decision to suspend the ban. And the Belgian Football Association has posted to their website today an update after they initially made a statement that was like, this is crazy. What are you talking about? The laws decide that you say that you have to be banned, right? And again, FIFA basing its decision on Article 27 of the FIFA Disciplinary Code is nonsense, et cetera, et cetera. The update today, they were told you have a chance to present an appeal, but you only have a certain number of hours to do it. In fact, I think the deadline was 5 o'clock Pacific this morning, 8 o'clock Eastern time. And this is a little long, but I'm going to read it because I think it's good to get it onto the record and have our people listen and understand where Belgium's coming from. It says, after learning through media reports of FIFA's decision to lift the automatic suspension of player Balogun, the RBFA sent a letter to FIFA requesting a copy of the decision, an explanation of the process that had been followed, and setting out its position regarding the applicable regulations, right? Again, like this idea that we're all in this, and in order to engage with this and with integrity, we all kind of have to know how this works. Why would I engage in a tournament if you can change the rules on me any second? Like, why would I choose to be part of this? As its only response, FIFA sent a letter to the RBFA stating that it considered this correspondence to constitute an appeal, that a judge had been appointed, and that the RBFA had only a few hours to complete that appeal. No information whatsoever was provided by FIFA. For an appeal to be admissible, FIFA's own regulations state that the reasoned decision must first have been communicated to the appellant. So they must be told, this is what we're doing and here's why, so that the appellant can appeal with full knowledge. While the RBFA was merely seeking legitimate explanations, FIFA itself created an appeal and immediately ensured that it would be declared inadmissible. What they're saying is, we sent a letter asking for clarification. FIFA said, oh, that's you appealing. That's you appealing. You're appealing. And the Belgian FA was like, wait a second. No, we just want to know what's happening. Even your laws say that you have to tell us what's going on before we can actually appeal. But FIFA created the pretense of an appeal so they could reject it out of hand. So they could say after the fact, oh, you had an appeal. This wasn't completely, Calvin Ball. We actually had a process for you to appeal, which again is nonsense. This is extra bad. Furthermore, during the match coordination meeting, so the meeting that they hold before the match, FIFA deliberately removed the section concerning the automatic suspension of players from its presentation. This topic had nonetheless been part of all such meetings before each of the previous 4 matches. The RBFA questioned FIFA, both orally and in writing, about the reasons for this change, yet once again received no response. To be clear, as of this moment, the RBFA still has not received any decision or explanation from FIFA regarding this matter. It therefore has no alternative but to challenge the players' eligibility for the upcoming match. Regardless of the sporting outcome of this match, the RBFA is deeply concerned by the course of events and will continue to fight in the coming hours, days, and months in defense of the fundamental principles of ethics, fair competition, and the interests of football as a whole. Now, again, if you want to be a cynic, you want to just be nihilistic about it, throw your hands up and say, it's all corrupt, who cares? It's all wrestling, doesn't matter. That then leaves you with a choice of whether you want to engage with something that is ultimately corruptible at this level. I think this is a line. I think this is crossing a line. I think this is too much.
That's wild. So which game had the omission from the pre-match? Tonight's USA game had the omission of the presentation?
Their pre-match coordination meeting for this game happening tonight, they removed the section that says if you get a red card, you're automatically suspended.
Wow. Okay. So yeah, that goes a river runs deep, so to speak. So that's definitely good to know. Thank you for adding that to the segment. It kind of pokes a hole. I always thought that the automatic suspension from a red card or yellow card accumulation was having that as a blanket suspension already was a bad rule. I thought, not all red cards are created equal. Like someone heinously breaking someone's leg is not the same thing.
But that's why they add games, Rob. A red card is one game automatically. And you say, okay, that's an automatic suspension of one game. But
I'm saying that 0 should be possible.
No, why? Why?
I just think that's too harsh. You get kicked out of one game, that's a punishment, and that's enough. Well, I'm not saying not all are created equal.
But the whole thing is meant, hold on, the whole thing is meant as a deterrence to the stuff we don't like, which is violent conduct or grabbing a player on a breakaway because you're going to get beat and give up a goal scoring chance. So let's pull them back. And okay, well, if I didn't do anything violent and I committed 2 yellow card offenses and I'm out this game, but I saved my team from losing because I prevented a goal, which obviously if you're in a last man, it's going to be a red card. But if you're not, if you're just in midfield and there's 3 other defenders and you yank a guy down, you've stopped an attack, right? You've cynically committed a foul. Anyway, I don't want to debate that. I don't want to.
But that's my next point, though, about this ruling in favor of the U.S. and Balogun is the Pandora's box it opens, at least for this tournament and probably for tournaments moving forward. So, like England versus Mexico last night, they got a straight red card. Jarrell Kwanzaa got a red card. Does that mean now that they're going to get the prime minister and throw the kitchen sink to appeal every single red card from eternity now?
Of course, the cynical take is, of course not that. Well, it won't happen. The World Cup's not happening in England. England is not beholden to, or FIFA's not beholden to England the way that they are the United States in the moment. And again, that just speaks to the corrupt element of this. It just does. And there's a comment in the chat from Francisco. Francisco, you got to be an ultra to get your comments on screen. But I do appreciate what you're saying, and I agree with this. The issue is, regardless of the mechanism that led to this, even if you want to address this and cover for FIFA by saying, well, they have the power to rescind the ban if for whatever reason they decide, but in this case, they actually can fall back on it shouldn't have been given in the first place. The issue now, right, because this doesn't happen in other circumstances. It hasn't happened in World Cups. Again, at least not since anybody who's watching it now has been alive, is that the only thing people are going to hear, the only thing people are going to know about this is that Donald Trump got Folarin Balogun's red card suspension suspended. That's all they're going to know. And right there, game's gone. Right? Game's gone. It's over at that point. I mean, I'm being dramatic for effect, but that is a problem, right? That is a thing. And I am curious to see after this tournament is over, whatever happens tonight. And again, it's tainted if the United States wins. It'll feel like catharsis for the world and everybody else if they lose, but it doesn't change what happened in this unprecedented move by FIFA. I'm curious to see if this is the kind of thing that solidifies the people around the idea of we've got to fix FIFA and that Infantino's gone too far. Because this looks very much like the president of FIFA, after cozying up to the autocrat wannabe president of the United States, did a favor for the president of the United States that completely undermines the integrity of the world sport, something billions of people care about.
So interesting. I didn't even think about that. Has Johnny gone too far? I mean, he replaced that Blatter, who everyone was done with his corruption, but you feel like, this is corruption taken to a whole new stratosphere compared to his predecessor. The next FIFA presidential election is next March of 2027. So will he run unopposed? I mean, I'm sure he's made his benefactors a lot of money. If he's siphoning off of any of his gains to people that matter, the voters that vote in the FIFA elections, I have a feeling that probably those people might just support.
We'll see. I mean, again, I don't know I can believe that until it's happening. And I also want to say, again, far be it for me to tell you how to feel. I'm not trying to tell you how to feel. I'm just explaining to my feelings. But I actually think U.S. men's national team fans should be absolutely furious. Even if you want Balogun in the team and you think that red card was an injustice, you should be absolutely furious that FIFA and Donald Trump and whoever's involved in this, U.S. Soccer, who apparently got their lawyers together and were threatening to go to the Court of Arbitration for Sport over that red card, which, I mean, my God, you should be furious that they are now making it more difficult for us to just celebrate what our team has achieved. Right?
I mean, imagine, yeah, because the feeling, okay, so tonight,
and how the rest of the world
Balogun,
sees us.
Or they win without Balogun. If they won without him, if this didn't happen, that would be another overcoming adversity moment. Like, everybody is pumped because they overcame the adversity of the red card against Bosnia, and they end up holding out and winning that. And then the narrative was set that, let's win so we can have Balogun back in the lineup. Let's earn him back into the team. And now, magic wand happens and that's no longer on your side. You're not like that, trying to find an overachievement. You're not, there's a goal that's been artificially evaporated from the task at hand. The last 4 or 5 days, I'm sure that's been one of the conversations in camp. That's certainly been the talk amongst fans. The last 4 days before this news came out, when I was talking with soccer friends, it was, I sure hope that Balogun's absence isn't the caveat that we rue if Monday doesn't go well, you know what I mean? And now that's all a little bit murky.